So it's finally here, the new Need for Speed games we've waited for 2 years for. The game that is said to bring back the franchise to what it was that fans came to love about it. It's time to review the PS4 version of one of the most loved franchises. So with this game, Ghost wanted to revive the title and bring back the stuff from the most popular titles like Underground 2 and Most Wanted from 2005, with a focus on what's said to be the richest customization option in a Need for Speed game yet, and as well as bring back FMVs with a rich story to digest. Starting off with the story, it follows the faceless and nameless bloke who arrives in the city of Ventura Bay, that is you, a fictional city loosely based up on Los Angeles. You meet up with Spike, who invites you to come along with the meet his team, and it starts out with you racing him and Amy. After that, you're introduced to the other members of the team, Manu, blah blah blah, and leader Travis. So you soon learn that the 5 icons in the game are in town, and it's Magnus Walker, who represents Speed, Naka-san, who represents Bill, Morohoshi-san, who represents Outlaw, and Risky Devil, who represents Drift. As the game progresses, you do different types of events under these categories, and the goal of the game is to make your mark and impress each of these icons to gain the respect and acknowledgement. There's a lot to do in the world with quite a big number of events, but most of that experience is ruined by the extremely annoying phone calls that I got off all the bloody time. It's one call when the next event's up, it's one when you fail it, one when you complete it, and one to remind you that the event you haven't done yet should be done as soon as possible. You will also get a next call within a minute of completing the last event. Highly annoying. Throughout the whole single player experience, the phone rings all the time. It would have been nice if they stopped pestering you if you went to your garage, or let alone in a race, but no. You could have 2 or 3 calls during a 3-minute race, which is crazy. Not only does it take us off your focus of the race, but it also makes you kind of zone out on what they're saying if you pick up the call. And trust me, you want to pick up the call because they'll call you back in a minute again. And sometimes just a call that doesn't even lead to any mission or something, just like random info. While it makes you feel more connected to characters and the story, it ultimately becomes a frustration, and since you're calling so often, you tend to stop listening to half of what they said. The number of the story missions is about 78, I believe, which is great, but the pacing could have been a lot better and the number of calls could have easily been cut in half. After finishing the story through, though, I'm ultimately quite pleased, to be honest. Yeah, same as an audience, probably around 15 years or something, younger than me, but it's okay for what it is, and it feels like a step back towards Most Wanted. I do wonder though, who thought using the words "bay" or something that was cray was a good idea? One of the producer's 14-year-old daughters? Ugh. Anyways, on to the customization. The game promises the richest customization yet in a Need for Speed game, which feels very promising. However, that kind of feels like a letdown of some sorts when you actually dive into it. While there certainly are a lot of stuff to do with your car, and a lot of these cars only have one body kit, for example. Only a few select cars have 3 or more, and there's a lot of cars that doesn't even have customization options for parts of the car. Symbolism is unavailable, like the headlights or taillights, which more or less doesn't exist on any car, but a few. The Nissan GTR, however, has 9 or something, so I don't know what's up with that. More stuff will probably be added later on, but I thought the initial stock would be far better. You certainly can't complain in the rims department though. There's a ton of rims to select from, thankfully. When you're done changing your body parts, adjusting the stance and camera of your car, it's time to make a stand out with the wrap system. This system is actually surprisingly good, and while I have no talent whatsoever, I've already seen a lot of amazingly good builds done by the community. It's however missing a very vital part of it, and it's mirroring your decals from one side to the other, but that is said to be come in a later patch. Moving on from the visual aspect of your car, there's also a whole lot of stuff to get into in terms of the upgrade and the performance section. Most of these parts will be unlocked by level, but some of them also be unlocked by completing missions for Amy the mechanic. This also represents the build missions. There's quite a lot to do, but in the end, it ultimately feels like it's just swap out this for that new part to make your car this much faster or stronger. There's a few differences though, depending on what kind of car you want to build. If you want to focus it on the higher top speed or just making it very quick on the lower gears, but in the end, it doesn't really make that much of a change. After that, it's time to change the handling of your car. This time around, you had the ability to change a lot of things when it comes to the car's handling. There's an overall slider that makes a generic twist towards a grip build or a work build, and that's totally fine, but maybe there's a thing or two you want to change yourself, as well as fine-tune it to your needs. And all in all, it works pretty good, and you can feel the difference between the grip setup quite easily. On to controls then. This is one of the aspects most people have been very vocal about since the beta, and sadly, nothing has really changed about that. The control still feels clunky, and your car is unresponsive at time. To start off, there's a noticeable input lag, and to top that off, the sensitivity is way too high, so the analog stick feels almost useless at times since you're constantly flipping it to the right and left to try and stay in a straight line or maintaining a drift or whatever. On top of that, there's a bug that I have encountered with a few cars. I don't think it's all of the cars, but sometimes the steering would just lock up and stop working, so I couldn't turn. This is probably where they need to dig out and do some work. It should feel way more responsible in a racing game, and there should definitely be a slider for the sensitivity of the analog stick. Manual transmission isn't here, which makes no sense at all. I don't know anything about programming, but implementing a feature to manually shift up and down doesn't seem very hard to accomplish. There's also no official wheel support for the consoles as far as I'm aware, which is also a bit odd. In an arcade racer like this, the gamepad works totally fine, but I can feel the disappointment for those already owning a Thrustmaster or likewise to have to resort to their gamepad instead. Again, no idea why. On to the graphics and sound. This is where the game stands out the most, and it really shines. The damp and gloomy world of Ventura Bay looks absolutely amazing. The reflections in the water, the lighting effects, they're all just like jaw-dropping at times. In the sound department, Need for Speed stays true to delivering a massive sound experience from all your favorite cars. Where the only little bit dent in this would be that the echo and noise in the tunnel is way too weak. So I really hope they'll address that in an upcoming patch. And pro tip for you guys, if you haven't already noticed, switch to the bumper or the hood cam, and then you look back and then start to accelerate, and you get this super awesome sound from your car. And I just love the attention to the detail they have when they put in how you experience the car sound depending on what angle you're using. So even if you're like close, third person, looking left, right, that sort of thing. Really nice, really nice. So what about the open world of Ventura Bay? Well, it's quite big, but it's not that big. They said it was twice the amount of rivals, but that was only meant in terms of drivable roads. I was actually surprised that the map from the beta was the final one. I was certain the retail version of the game would feature a larger map, but it didn't. The reason for this could be many, but one of the most plausible reasons, if you ask me, is the delay for the PC version. as well as trying to keep the game interesting for a long period of time by adding stuff to it. As you're probably aware, this game features no microtransactions nor paid DLC. New content whenever it arrives will be free, and they said that there's a large one coming in December, which leads me to believe we're getting our first map expansion and then possibly more story missions as well. It gives you something to look forward to, and I hope to release info on what's coming so that you can still feel excitement for the game in a month or so, because right now this is where the game kind of falls flat for me and a lot of people I play with. Which is a nice segue into the next section, which will be my last, the multiplayer. Need for Speed 2015 features the same kind of multiplayer integrated with single player as we saw in Rivals, but much less frustrating as you more or less never have a race ruined by someone else, intentionally or unintentionally. That's a good thing for me and for my friends as well, but more or less what gives us the longevity and value for money is the replayability that comes with PvP or competitive racing against others. Right now, if you don't have any friends to play with, you're pretty much all alone. To engage in a multiplayer race, you have to drive up to the event and have to have the participant in the same area. As soon as any one of you hit the R1 to trigger the race for launch, it will launch. No confirmation from the other players even sent out. With my experience from Rivals and my experience so far with this game is that people will be busy with their own thing and they won't care about you. And even if you did get in a race with someone, you have no idea what your opponent cars will be like. You could both be in a Supra, but he being around level 20 and me being around level 50. The difference in performance with the maximum upgrades available will be huge. There is a crew system though in the game that will allow you to join others in a crew, which will give you a slightly higher payout for finishing missions or races, as well as adding the much needed feature to press square to send out an invite to all your crewmates. However, this function is still quite buggy. More often than not, people tend to have problem joining at times, and occasionally invites either won't pop up for some of the players, or the events will sometimes start without all the players even though they're in a designated area, and sometimes they will tell you to return to the designated area even though you're within it. So yeah, when it's working though, it's a lot of fun. Again, only another problem: you will only be racing with people in your crew, with no way to communicate with other randoms. Organizing races and what happens in between them is more or less impossible. Not to mention that if you don't have any friends to play with, for starters, and you can't communicate over voice IP with them, I mean, there could be a language barrier or something. It will be a frustrating struggle to even do some races, and the downtime in between them will be insane, more or less. A lobby system is much needed, and I think actually iRetire solved this issue with their PvP system in the crew, despite the game being an open world and also only allowing 8 players in a session. The multiplayer is where actually the most work should be focused on, in my opinion. Make it easier to interact with other people without having to form up a crew and implement the lobby system. With it, I think this game would be so much more enjoyable for everyone. So, conclusion then. To sum it all up, I think that people might be a bit too harsh on this game with their negative feedback, because I've seen a lot of it, mainly on Reddit and some reviews. Not that I find the criticism not valid, it's just that people have so high hopes on the game, and being Need for Speed, it has a lot to live up to. But if you think about it a little bit more objectively, like if this was the same game we have right here in front of us and it wasn't labeled Need for Speed, it's quite a good arcade racer and a clear step in the right direction. However, one can set aside a total overlook from the depths of the multiplayer component. It has such a heavy emphasis on the social integration, yet lacking some core functions of it. One can only hope that future content will remedy that. Here's to hoping that December will tend to the wounds of Need for Speed 2015. But I still think I give this game right now about a 6 out of 10, with the potential of being so much better. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.